When you were in graduate school, when you started graduate school, you told all your professors that you didn't ever want to see a grade. You didn't want them to grade you. They could give you a grade at the end of the semester, but you didn't ever want to see a grade on anything that you turned in, and you didn't want anyone telling you how well you were doing. You just basically said, I refuse to allow you to judge me. And then you just trusted that you were going forward, right? I've never heard another human being do that, and you did it. Mm-hmm. What was behind that? You can go anywhere you want to go.
So I was in graduate school here in Human Development and Family Studies. Is anyone part of that program? Is anyone? There have to be majors in here. Really? I really don't see anybody. Okay, anyway, Human Development and Family Studies was a study of the regression line for 5 years. So I came here to study people. I was coming from social work, and I wanted to learn about humans. And I studied y equals ax plus b for 5 years. And so in that process, I was just saying this earlier today. I came to understand the limits of human knowledge, which was pretty cosmic and cool. But in the process, I was on the huge struggle bus trying to understand statistics and methods and calculus and matrix algebra, all this for me. But anyway, at some point I was I'm going to learn this. And I realized that I don't need some person to tell me that I learned it to their standard, because I'm going to learn it. And therefore, I don't need your grades. So I would very respectfully request no grades. So I'll take exams, I'll write papers, but I just do not want you to put an assessment on what I'm learning, because I know I'm learning, and that's all that matters. And so that's what I did. And it was so awesome. And really still hard. Nothing got any easier. But it was if I'm not learning, that's the problem. But you can't evaluate my learning according to your standards. So that was that.
So how do you deal with that with your own students?
You all, I don't evaluate. The classes that I'm responsible for, there's no evaluation. It's just, did you show up? Did you do what you said you were going to do? It's basically just as if you were pushing a time clock. You showed up for work, so you got paid for the hours you were there, and you go home, because I just do not. So basically, you just get credit for fulfilling your commitments, because there is no way I can tell that you learned an outstanding amount of things and you only learned at an average level. How do I know that? You know that. In fact, most people that get A's, you probably don't deserve an outstanding. You probably were pretty average and probably knew all that stuff mostly to begin with. But if you actually did something really hard that you couldn't even imagine yourself doing and you got a C, maybe that's actually really the A, because you did this outstanding job of learning. I just think grades are so irrelevant to what learning actually is. It's really true. You can clap for that. It's unbelievably irrelevant. And so, yeah. Did I answer it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what would you say about this class then, No, just help me out, because you're gonna put me in a corner here.
I am about to.
Yeah. So a lot of times students say, "Well, I know, but I learned so much, but I didn't do well on the quizzes, and I'm going to get a B, but I really should get an A because of how much I've transformed my thinking and that sort of thing." And I feel like my hands are tied, because I'm just assigning grades, but grades don't mean anything. They're just letters. I don't really care. Just like these letters, it doesn't matter, because I know that just
No. You're in a different position, though.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's this thing where you are in the position where you have to treat the 800 people equitably. That's a thing. So you can't just be like, Simon, right? Hey, Simon. Yeah, I understand. You had this little thing go on. I understand that. I have compassion. I'll help you out. Well, what about all of the people in the middle row and the back row and the whatever who also had that but didn't talk to you, right? Or just didn't even think of X, Y, or Z. You just can't do. That's something else. Talking about grades in this way, it's you got to just forget the whole system of grades and education. But when you're in the system, you still have to treat everybody the same.
Yeah. Got you.
So to speak, even though we all have different circumstances, but it's sort of, can you like put out a system that at least your commitment is to treat people equitably?
Unless and once in a while, students will come to me, or they've heard your story or something, and they've come to me and said, don't give me a grade, or whatever it is, which is very cool. Okay. Does anybody have a question they want to ask before I go to my next question?
Or a comment.
A comment?
How about
question?
other things?
All right, man. Who's got a question or a comment? Richard?
I come from engineering, which is kind of a more scientifically and analytically disciplined curriculum. So if you would suggest that grades are kind of irrelevant there, how do you gauge students on their understanding? Because I would argue that it's kind of academically irresponsible to send people who haven't been evaluated on their performance to go build our bridges, which need to be structurally sound.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's about my evaluation. I know that like when you go into the world, first of all, I'm not going to send you out as like a brand new student, graduate to go build a bridge by yourself. But very quickly, the people that you're building a bridge with will know, like, whoa, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I just think that we so undervalue the actual work that we do in the world and that we will do and that people will see. And I just think like, actually our transcripts really send people, again, it's just another one of those like, it's like a commercial for yourself, but it doesn't necessarily equate with who actually is brilliant, who does the most creative work, who's the best problem solver. There's so many things. It basically says you're good at following the educational rules that you were supposed to follow. And I mean, I'm not saying this is complete, like their evaluation has a place, but it's way overvalued. And I think we have so much opportunity in the world to just do the work, do the work, and that's where it'll show what you know and what you can do. So I think engineering is actually a really, really good example of that, because you can't fake it. You know what I mean? It either works or it doesn't work. Whereas like here, social science, it's like, oh, that's an idea.
So in other words, if he shows up in the world with straight A's, and he gets on the job, and they're like, hey, we hired you to do all this stuff, someone's going to see very quickly if he's a dullard and he had straight A's, and they're going to see he's a dullard immediately and be like, oh, but we're still
you won't advance. You know what I mean? And I think the fact that we have these measures, oh, but he's the such and such scholar. Okay, well, if he is, then he or she will do a great job. But like, coming from a working class family, where I come from a family of electrical contractors that work with engineers all the time, right? And they're like, they don't know what they're doing. Like, that's great that they had a college education, but like, do they know this? Do they know this? Do they know that? Do they know that? So anyway, I think in the world, it gets obvious really quickly. When you're in school, you can't really feel that because it's not real.
Yeah.
Learning matters, you know what I mean? Grades don't. They really don't. They only do in a very short, tiny little way. But when you think about life itself, learning is its own reinforcement. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Like, you'll know when it's mattering to you. And if it doesn't matter to you, you probably shouldn't do it. Because you're not going to be a good doctor or a good engineer or a good dialogue facilitator or a good lawyer or a good teacher or a good electrician or plumber or whatever. That's going to suck for everybody.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I've heard a lot of people who hire people talk about what college actually does, and all it is a way that they can see that you can jump through hoops and do what you have to meet the bare minimum of your position. Everything else that you do, it doesn't matter what your grade was in whatever freaking class or what your GPA was when you ended in school. None of that matters. All it is just to jump through hoops and say, oh yeah, you can do it. Basically.
Okay, Lori's going to make one response to that, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
By the way, a place like college where you can learn all day, all the time, you can just walk around and go into a building and just find some other person who can teach you something amazing, is awesome. It is awesome. Like people are, I'm starting to see people are trying to create these things for people in midlife now. Like you might have heard of South by Southwest or Naples Next. It's like, it's the coolest thing to be able to come together with other humans and do what you all get to do right now. So please don't take what I'm saying as undermining you being here, because it's amazing. It's just that when we get distracted by the grade, we miss out on the incredible opportunities that exist on this campus and all the other campuses like it. It's really, this is an awesome, awesome opportunity.